Recently, a new Korean film totally shattered my worldview. In just a few days after its release, netizens flooded the police with reports demanding a serious investigation into the director. The content was so disturbing that anyone with a shred of morality couldn't believe a human being actually made this movie. After countless edits and censorship, it barely made it to theaters. Behind the wheel, he keeps sneaking glances at a female student's legs so much so that he runs a red light without even noticing. The student gently reminds him,
빨간불인데 그냥 가요?
저런 건 지키는 게 바보야.
and Young-sun responds with a cryptic comment hinting that her meeting with him has something to do with her dream of getting into the opera troupe. But before he finishes his smooth talk, a traffic cop suddenly pulls up behind them. The officer informs Young-sun that he ran a red light and needs to sign a ticket. Young-sun immediately denies it, claiming there were no traffic cameras in that area. To his surprise, the cop pulls out video footage of the exact violation. Busted, Young-sun quickly changes his tone, flashing a smile and asking for leniency. He even suggests the cop write it up as a seatbelt violation instead. But when the cop stands firm, Young-sun loses it. He doesn't want to lose face in front of the student. Still, all he can do is sign the ticket reluctantly. As Young-sun continues driving, the same cop takes a shortcut and gets to the next traffic light first. Using a remote, he changes it to red and waits with his camera ready. But Young-sun doesn't learn his lesson. He speeds through the light again and even yells out the window at the cop.
예이 호로 자식아! 짭새를 먹고 살아라!
The cop, fuming with rage, jumped on his motorcycle and tore off after him. Young-sun swerves into a side road, managing to shake off the cop, but neither of them realized they were heading straight into a village where only the wicked thrive. Feeling proud of his genius escape, Young-sun has no idea he's just entered a place ruled by darkness. Eventually, they pull over near a quiet riverbank. Young-sun tells the student to take a break there. She gets the hint and replies with a teasing tone.
너무 조용해서 사람이 죽어도 모르겠네요.
걱정 마, 안 죽여.
They light a small fire and roast sweet potatoes. She brings up her recent audition and nervously asks if he thinks she'll get in. Young-sun places a hand on her shoulder and offers fake encouragement, complimenting her singing voice while letting his hand slide down to her waist. He starts coaching her on pronunciation, inching uncomfortably closer until he sticks out his tongue, making the girl finally realize his true intentions. She quickly locks herself in the car. Young-sun, realizing he's crossed the line, pleads from outside. He promises not to touch her again if she lets him in. After some convincing, the girl reluctantly unlocks the door, but the moment Young-sun senses she's dropped her guard, he lunges at her. She fights back with everything she has. In a moment of desperation, she grabs a phone and bashes it against his head until he finally lets go. She escapes into the woods. When Young-sun tries to follow, she's already vanished into the hills. But he doesn't panic, he knows this place is remote, and sooner or later, she'll have to come back. He waits in the car. Just then, an eagle suddenly dropped from the sky, gave a few convulsive twitches, and then went completely still. Before Young-sun can process what's happening, a strange man appears, dark-skinned, yellow-toothed, and holding a blood-stained baseball bat. He looks like he walked out of an ancient bandit tale. Sensing danger, Young-sun quietly rolls up his window, but the man seems more interested in the fallen goose. He raised his baseball bat, waited for the bird to make a move, then slammed it mid-air with pinpoint precision. Young-sun is frozen in fear, but that's just the beginning. The man, later revealed as Ogun, pulls a rat from his bag, stuffs it full of poison, and chases it around with a childlike glee until the poison kicks in. Only then does he notice Young-sun's car. He approaches, bat in hand. Young-sun locks the doors and pretends to sleep. Luckily, the car windows are one-way glass. Ogun spits on the glass and tries to peer inside, but sees nothing. Inside, Young-sun suddenly spots the student's underwear on the seat. He quickly hides it, terrified of what might happen if Ogun saw it. Eventually, Ogun loses interest and heads to the campfire to eat the leftover sweet potatoes. Relieved, Young-sun prays for the girl to return so they can get the heck out of there. But time passes, and she's nowhere in sight. Worried Ogun might try something, Young-sun decides to start the car and leave. Just then, two guys on motorcycles appear. Ogun greets them like old friends. He pokes a burlap sack they brought with them. Something is inside, but it's not moving. Ogun grins ominously. Just then, the two punks who had just arrived also noticed the car. Young-sun had no choice but to pretend he was asleep again. The short-haired guy leaned on the windshield and finally made out a shadowy figure inside. The red-haired guy stepped forward and said, "I heard rich city folks like to end their lives in their cars."
차 타는 놈들이 뭐가 아쉽다고 뒤지냐?
trying to figure out if the person inside was still alive. The short-haired guy picked up a small stone, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break the glass. Young Sun, frozen in fear, didn't dare make a sound. Seeing the windows still intact, the red-haired punk picked up a bigger rock and climbed onto the roof. Just as he was about to smash the window, the car suddenly started, startling all three of them into complete silence. The red-haired guy clung to the roof, not daring to move. Young Sun slammed the brakes, flinging him off, but the car got stuck in the soft sand and couldn't move. With no other option, Young Sun pretended to stay calm and got out to argue. His act actually startled the punks for a moment, but his trembling hands gave away his fear. Seeing this, the short-haired guy smirked and signaled Ogun behind him to knock Young Sun out with a single blow. When Young Sun came to, they had already started frisking him, trying to strip him of anything valuable. The red-haired guy found a small metal box in his pocket. He and the short-haired one immediately fought over it. Neither of them could read, so they guessed it must contain something illegal. The short-haired guy tasted a bit with his finger, while the red-haired one copied what he'd seen on TV, sniffing it sharply through his nose.
이렇게 이 새끼야. 그거 용각산인데요.
Hearing this, the short-haired guy freaked out and tossed it away, but Ogun picked it up, dumped up the asthma meds inside, and replaced them with rat poison from his pocket, finally feeling like he had something useful, not knowing this would eventually cause real harm. Finding nothing else, they searched Young Sun again, afraid they'd find the panties in his pocket. He quickly pulled out his business card to distract them, claiming he was a music professor who'd just come for some fresh air. They scoffed at him, but Ogun suddenly got excited, saying he'd seen this professor on TV before. Thinking they had just met someone famous, the three of them got visibly excited and began treating Young Sun with uncharacteristic politeness. Meanwhile, the girl had made her way onto a narrow path. Where an electric scooter happened to pass by, she managed to flag it down just in time. She cautiously asked for help. Bong-yeon, the writer, had never spoken to such a pretty girl before and became shy on the spot. In a daze, he agreed to take her to the station, but instead, he brought her back to the valley. Turns out, they were all jobless drifters from nearby villages who had planned to meet by the river for a barbecue. When the girl saw the two punks again, along with the sack on their bike, she immediately became anxious because earlier, while fleeing, she had seen something terrifying in the woods. She'd seen the red-haired and short-haired guys dragging a sack off their motorcycle, dumping out a man named Hyun-jae. The man looked absolutely terrified and didn't dare resist no matter how they messed with him. Seeing how defenseless Hyun-jae was, the two punks got even more cruel, beating him senseless. After getting tired, they dumped him into a pit they'd already dug and began to bury him alive. The girl hid behind a tree, too scared to make a sound, silently praying not to be discovered. After chatting near the pit for a while, the two punks noticed Hyun-jae had stopped breathing, panicking at the thought of a real death. They quickly dug him back up without checking if he was alive or dead. They tied him to the back of a motorcycle and left. Eventually, the girl stumbled back to the roadside only to be brought full circle, right back to this place. Here, she not only saw Young Sun again but also spotted the same two punks. Judging by how respectfully they acted, Bong-yeon must be their leader. The girl didn't know what to do. The memory of the burial scene replayed in her head, and she couldn't help but fear for her own safety. But Bong-yeon didn't sense her fear. He even warmly invited her to have some barbecue with them before taking her to the station. Though the girl was reluctant, she didn't dare say no. Bong-yeon then noticed Young Sun in his luxury car. After learning the car was stuck, he called the others over to help push. Young Sun thought he'd finally met some good people, but when Bong-yeon took off his shirt and revealed deep knife scars on his torso, Young Sun realized he was in no safe place. The girl was invited into the car to step on the gas while others pushed. Seizing the moment, she quickly searched for the panties she'd left behind if these guys saw them. Who knows what twisted thoughts it might spark? But no matter how hard they pushed, the car wouldn't budge. Bong-yeon had no choice but to call a friend with a tow truck, asking him to come help pull the car out. When he found out it would take another hour or two for the tow to arrive, Bong-yeon suddenly flipped his attitude, turning nasty in an instant. The shift in tone nearly made Young Sun wet himself, but right after hanging up, Bong-yeon returned to smiling, warmly inviting them to join the meal. The girl and Young Sun exchanged glances and silently agreed to pretend they didn't know each other to avoid any added suspicion. The girl stared at the nearby sack in fear, while Young Sun watched Ogun munching on raw pork, too scared to pick up his chopsticks. Suddenly, Bong-yeon handed Young Sun a barely cooked piece of meat. Under the group's threatening eyes, he forced it down with a queasy expression. Banyan then began telling Ogun's backstory, how he got brain damage from a schoolyard fight and now made a living slaughtering pigs. Banyan joked that even the pigs didn't take him seriously anymore. Hearing this, Ogun looked offended, but with just one glare from Banyan, he immediately returned to looking meek and obedient. Just as the tension rose, Banyan's phone rang. While he answered, the two punks whispered to each other, speculating that the girl wasn't wearing underwear. They then walked over to her, trying to strike up a sleazy conversation. Luckily, Banyan came back just in time to break it up. Young Sun pretended he and the girl were headed in the same direction, offering her a ride once the car got towed. Banyan clearly wasn't happy, but he respected her choice. The girl knew Young Sun had bad intentions, but she figured he was still safer than these criminals. So, after pretending to hesitate, she said she'd go with Young Sun to avoid troubling the kind big brother. He thought she was looking down on his motorcycle. His face turned cold in an instant, and right then, Young Sun made the mistake of saying, "Thanks." That gave Banyan the perfect excuse to snap.
뭐가 감사하냐고요? 뭐가 감사하냐고요?
Young Sun froze, terrified, unable to say another word. Meanwhile, a sack on the motorcycle suddenly fell off. Although Young Sun had already suspected it might contain a person, seeing it for real still shocked him. Inside the sack was Hyun-jae, who looked like he'd been picked on so often that he obeyed every cruel order without resistance, even letting them hit him with stones without flinching. Banyan wasn't done yet. He ordered Hyun-jae to strip his pants off in front of everyone. The girl tried to stop it, but that only excited Banyan more. He even made Hyun-jae take off his underwear. Humiliated, the girl tried to run, but two thugs dragged her back. She saw Young Sun doing nothing and yelled at him, blaming him for bringing her into this mess. Banyan immediately realized they knew each other. Young Sun tried to deny it, but when he saw the knife, he froze and admitted it. Banyan then pulled the girl's student ID from his shirt and said he found it in Young Sun's car, so he knew exactly why a teacher and student were out here in the wild. To punish both of them, Banyan forced the girl into the car, and since he wasn't interested in her, came up with a twisted game. Young Sun and Hyun-jae must fight one-on-one. Whoever wins gets to leave alive. Once the entertainment was arranged, Banyan jumped into the river for a swim.
제발 이러지 마. 이 학생?
Young Sun didn't want to fight Hyun-jae, but Hyun-jae was desperate to escape and fought fiercely. Hyun-jae had endured daily beatings and knew how to fight, while the frail Young Sun quickly collapsed under his assault. The girl struggled inside the car. Hyun-jae remembered how she had spoken up for him earlier, so he decided to save her. He smashed a brick through the window, taking out Ogun. When the short-haired thug rushed in, Hyun-jae, now full of confidence, easily knocked him down. Even the red-haired thug got pummeled into submission, begging for mercy. Young Sun finally snapped out of his daze and bolted, abandoning both the car and the thugs. Right then, Banyan, done swimming, challenged Hyun-jae himself.
야, 세게 쳐야지, 세게 자.
But it turned out Banyan had real skills. He let Hyun-jae punch him a few times before handing over a baseball bat. Hyun-jae, fueled by rage, beat Banyan unconscious. He then dug 4 deep pits, dumped the thugs into them, poured gasoline over their heads, and prepared to set them ablaze. The girl screamed for him to stop, but Hyun-jae had been holding it in for far too long.
기절할 때까지 술 먹어봤어? 기절할 때까지 술 먹고 깨어날 때까지 마셔봤어? 가래침 들어간 맘 먹어봤어? 살아있는 쥐새끼 먹어봤어?
When they talked, Banyan woke up in the pits. He grabbed a shovel and struck Hyun-jae's legs, dropping him in agonizing pain. Banyan and the others wriggled and thrashed, trying to free themselves from the sand. Banyan grabbed the girl, Ogun, filled with vengeance, nearly beat Hyun-jae to death, but the red-haired thug intervened. Realizing someone had died, they shoved the girl and Hyun-jae into the car trunk. They planned to dump them both in a reservoir to destroy the evidence. Meanwhile, Young Sun had made it back to the road only to flag down the same traffic cop from earlier. Luckily, the cop didn't press charges. Young Sun pointed him toward the valley, but when they got there, both the car and the people had completely vanished. At first, the cop thought Young Sun was joking and kicked him hard in the stomach. Just as he was about to ride off, a gunshot rang out. The would-be car disposal scene turned chaotic. The thug's car flipped, and the cop rushed toward the sound. Remarkably, Hyun-jae survived burial and beating. Banyan advanced with a shovel, and the girl trembled as she pulled out a gun, pointing it at him. He scoffed, placing his head against the barrel. Convinced she'd never shoot, she closed her eyes, about to fire, but at that moment, the police arrived. They tackled Bong Yun just as she pulled the trigger, preventing a murder. The cop snatched the gun and realized the injured Hyunjae was his own brother and the gun was one he'd stolen. He'd warned his family he was being bullied, but they didn't listen. Bong Yun had targeted his brother to avenge past abuse. The cop, back in school, was the one who beat Oh-gun into a mental state and scarred Bong Yun himself. Now, he was simply returning that same pain without changing a thing.
받은 거 돌려주려면 아직 멀었어요. 제가 옛날에 이순경님을 사랑했던 것만큼.
To stop the carnage, the cop handcuffed Bong Yun but then began slapping him like a bully, trying to force him into submission. Yet as the blows landed, Bong Yun seemed satisfied. He turned his tormentor the cop back into the schoolyard thug he once was. His evil had once again taken control. The thugs watched silently until the cop finally collapsed from exhaustion, then he switched his focus to Oh-gun. Spotting a colorful pillbox in his pocket, the cop tried a pill, expecting poison, but Young-sun snatched it and said it was just asthma medicine. Convinced, the cop carried his brother to the hospital. Bong Yun, battered and bruised, insisted he was fine whether from shock or madness. It was hard to tell.
같이 안 갈래요? 터미널까지 태워다 주려니까 금방 가요.
Soon, the tow truck arrived. The girl was rescued by the driver. On the way back, they saw Young-sun lying on top of the police car and the cop's brother dead in the roadside ditch. As for the rat poison that Oh-gun had swapped into the medicine tin, it stayed with Young-sun. The fate of this predator was clear.